Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained, of course. And well, hello. I think I don't sound like Michael Spinella, and that's because I am Amy Johnson, filling in while Michael Spinella is out of town this week, and I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'm going to be your host for today's show for episode 295 of the Canadiens Connection podcast. And of course, I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, who's also our editor-in-chief, founder, and president of Rocket Sports. He's the site editor at our hockey news home, thn.com/Montreal, and he is the one and only Rick Stevens. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you here in the hosting chair while Michael is off gallivanting. But we've got a pretty good show today. Before we get too far into the show, it's Mother's Day weekend, so I want to say Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mama's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to mothers and grandmoms and great-grandmoms out there who are listening to our show.
Absolutely. Happy Mother's Day to all. We do have a great show today. Lots to talk about. In the first segment, of course, we're going to get you all caught up with any of the most recent news. No, the Canadiens aren't playing hockey right now, but some of their players are in the World Championships. We're going to take a look at who's doing what in the World Championship tournament, get you some prospect information, touch a little bit on how the Canadiens fared during the draft lottery, and start to take a look at some early mock drafts as to what the Canadiens could be looking at in terms of their first round selection. We're going to hear from Kent Hughes, all sorts of good things, as well as some hot topics going on around the NHL in general. Then we have a really special second segment. We have a special guest joining us on the show this week. He's none other than Jeff Mailloux, the father of Montreal Canadiens and Laval Rocket defenseman Logan Mailloux. And Jeff actually is going to join Rick and I here in the studio today. We're going to talk all about what it's like from him and the family side of watching Logan have such a tremendous rookie season, putting up some big numbers, setting some records, really hitting some milestones in his young career. And he's also going to give us kind of a look at what kind of goals Logan's got ahead this summer and in the fall come training camp. It's going to be a great conversation. You don't want to miss that in the second segment. And then finally, in the third segment, we'll get you caught up in anything you might have missed. If the Canadiens are off golfing, maybe you are as well. So you might have missed some things that we've had come out around on our different platforms here at Rocket Sports. We'll get you all caught up with that. We've got a very fun question of the week that we want to answer. We want you to answer. And we'll, of course, read a couple of great comments from our listeners and viewers from last week's show, from last week's question of the week. So if you do want to interact with us, if you do want to maybe have your comments read here on the show, or just want to offer a comment or some feedback, remember, this is a totally interactive podcast, and you can text us at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on the Rocket Sports text line. That's at 5853-ROCKET. Once again, that's 5853-ROCKET. If you're watching on YouTube, just drop a comment down in the comment section underneath the video. And you can also drop us a comment on social media at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you've ever missed an episode, you can always check out our archive at canadiensconnection.fm.
And as well, we have an email address. You can send an email if you have a little more to say. hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. That's hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. And you want to be subscribed because sometimes we send out little advance information, and some of you participated and were able to ask Logan Mailloux's dad a question. We're gonna include those questions in the interview with Jeff Mailloux coming up, as you said, in the second segment.
That is correct. So, without further ado, let's get started. Since the last show a week ago, last Saturday, as I mentioned a moment ago, the IIHF World Championship tournament has gotten underway as of Friday, yesterday. That's May 10th. There are actually games happening, most of which have finished at this point. On Saturday, Canada actually took on Great Britain for their first game of the tournament early on Saturday morning for North American time, and Canada came out on top, winning that one 4-2.
The tournament's being held in Czechia, Prague, in Australia, I think. And so the timing is a little earlier. And in that game against Great Britain, Caden Gooley got his first point of the World Championships, got an assist on one of two Connor Bedard goals. Caden Gooley playing about just over 17 minutes in that game.
At the time of our sitting down to chat here in the studio, Austria is currently facing off against Denmark.
Yeah, they're just starting the third period as we're recording. It's 3-1 Denmark. That lone Austrian goal was assisted by Canadiens prospect Vincenz Rohr.
Excellent. And then probably at some point around the time that this podcast will be released to all of you fine folks, the U.S. is going to take on Germany in their second game of the tournament. In fact, they had their first game on Friday. And I don't know if this is coming to us as a surprise to people or not, but once again, Sweden looks to be a big contender because Sweden certainly kind of put the U.S. in their place, winning 5-2 over the United States.
No points for Cole Caulfield in the U.S. lineup. He had 2 shots on goal, played about 16 minutes, and finished a -2. Again, Cole Caulfield, you mentioned the game against Germany on Saturday, so we'll see if he's able to get his first points of the tournament.
There was also a Habs prospect playing in Friday's Czechia versus Finland game, and that was a really, really tight matchup. Czechia beating Finland 1-0 in the shootout.
Yeah, no scoring in regulation or overtime, settled in the shootout. Oliver Kapanen, Canadiens prospect, no points, had 1 shot on goal. He also participated in the shootout, but wasn't able to score, and just under 16 minutes of ice time for him. The other recognizable face for Czechia is Thomas Plekanec, who is an assistant coach for Team Czechia.
Does he have a turtleneck on?
That's a very good question. No, he doesn't have a turtleneck on.
And then finally, the big star for Habs prospects on the opening day for the World Championship has to be during the Slovakia-Germany game. Germany did win this game 6-4, but there was a Slovakian player that certainly made his presence known.
Yuri Slavkovsky, 2 assists, 6 shots on goal, played 20 minutes in that game, was named player of the game for Team Slovakia, but he was not a happy camp. You saw him in the penalty box. He's looking pretty grumpy, mad about the penalty. He wasn't happy after the game that Slovakia fell to Germany.
Not at all. So we'll keep an eye on all of those Montreal Canadiens prospects and current roster players who are participating in the tournament. As Cole Caulfield said, why would you not want to play if your country comes calling? And it's very fun to watch kind of best on best international hockey. So very fun to keep an eye on that as the tournament progresses. Speaking of Oliver Kapanen, in terms of roster news, should mention that he has signed a 2-year contract in the Swedish Hockey League with Timrå IK.
He has. He's been with Kalpa the last couple of seasons, and in the Liga, but now he moves into the SHL. A 2-year contract. It's a little complicated, but the Canadiens can still. He's without an ELC so far, but if he signs an entry-level contract this summer, then he only has to play 1 year of that 2-year contract in the SHL, and he'd be eligible to come over next season with the Canadiens. If they don't sign him to the ELC this summer, wait till next summer, then he has to fulfill the full 2-year contract with Timrose. So he had a terrific season. We've been talking about him on the podcast. 34 points in 51 games in the regular season, and then as his coach said, one of the best players in the league in the playoffs. He was on a point-a-game pace in the playoffs, and now participating for his country in the World Championships.
Excellent. All right, let us take a quick peek at the Habs prospect report while we're talking about prospects.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
So while there are not actual Canadiens prospects playing in any postseason action this week for us to report on, the focus really in terms of prospects is who are going to be the next crop of prospects for the Montreal Canadiens now that the draft lottery has taken place. And since that happened on Tuesday night, of course, TSN's Bob McKenzie, always quick and ready with his draft rankings. And so he's released his lottery edition of his draft rankings.
Yeah, that's right. And just to go back to your previous point, we're talking, of course, about Owen Beck. The Memorial Cup coming up. The finals are completing in the WHL, OHL, the Q. Owen Beck, Saginaw was eliminated by the London Knights, but of course, Saginaw is the host, so Owen Beck will be there, and we'll have full focus on him once the Memorial Cup starts. But as you introduced, Bob McKenzie, his lottery edition draft rankings. So this is one before his final rankings, which will come out in, I think he said, another 2 or 3 weeks. The important point here, yes, we all know that Macklin Celebrini, Boston University, is going to go first overall. And beyond that, Bob, the way he phrased it was, quote, an unpredictable ride after Macklin Celebrini is taken at number 1, meaning that there's no consensus and that the individual lists from the different teams are going to vary widely. We've talked before that this is a draft that's heavy on defensemen early on. Of course, that's not necessarily what Canadiens fans are looking for. And the ranks of the forwards will be a little bit all over the place. So his midseason or his lottery season rankings have Celebrini, of course, Leev, Lashunov, Yzerman, Lindstrom, Demidov, and others. Not necessarily important at this stage what order that Bob has them in. We'll look at them when the final rankings come out. The only other thing I'll say about draft rankings is that over the next 5 weeks before the draft, this podcast, every week you're going to hear from a draft expert. Mm-hmm. Last year we had Sam Cosentino from Sportsnet. We had Russ Cohen from Elite Prospects, Jerome Berube. We're going to give you all the best and latest information from top draft picks, draft experts. We know that Canadiens fans all consider themselves a draft expert at this stage, but we're going to give you information from the guys who do this for a living and watch these prospects play every single day.
Absolutely. And that will be as Rick just said, as we did last year, it'll be a series of special guests appearing here on the show. You're not going to want to miss those. So whether you're listening on a podcast or if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, hit that subscribe button because there are going to be some exclusive interviews with some of those draft experts coming up here in the next few weeks that you don't want to miss. Of course, now that the lottery has taken place, we know that the Canadiens are selecting at 5th overall once again. That means that now the pundits are starting to do their draft mocks and who might the Canadiens select at that 5th overall position, Rick. And well, there were some suggestions out there, some guesses, some prognostications that have been floating around already.
Scott Wheeler, first out of the gate for the Athletic, This is his first mock, and more will come as information leaks out. Of course, San Jose will have the first pick in the draft, and to no one's surprise, Scott has San Jose picking Macklin Celebrini. He has Demidov going to Chicago. Demidov and Bedard would be a lethal combination. Lashunov, of course, Pat Verbeek has said he's looking for a right-handed defenseman. Lashunov, a right-handed defenseman to Anaheim. Columbus with Saleyev. They could probably go in either direction, a forward or a defenseman. Scott has Saleyev going there, and that leaves the Canadiens at 5th. And from the Medicine Hat Tigers, he has Caden Lindstrom, which I know would please a lot of fans. That's not, as we said, there's no consensus, and the concern, of course, about Caden Lindstrom, everybody loves the style he plays, would be a nice fit, absolutely, but there are injury concerns, and it was difficult to evaluate him this season with all the time he spent off the ice. So that's a first look at what might happen from Scott Wheeler. Kraken on, you have in 6 Utah taking Zev Buim, the Senators with Zane Parekh. Kraken with Sam Dickinson, Calgary with T. Jaginla. That's a nice fit there in Calgary. And New Jersey with Consta Helenius, who is also participating in the World Championship. So that's one look. And as I said, there will be more.
There will. And more. And more.
The Athletic folks, that was Scott Wheeler. Corey Pronman sat down with all of the editors from all of the teams, and they did a mock. They went through the motions of a mock, which is kind of fun. No difference at the number 1 position, of course. They have San Jose going first and taking Celebrini. The second pick stays the same, Demidov in Chicago. Lashunov to the Ducks, but they have Columbus taking Caden Lindstrom at the number 4 position. That leaves the Canadiens in a difficult spot because in this mock, Celebrini's gone, Demidov's gone, and Lindstrom's gone. 3 of the forwards that we expect they would have their eye on. So in this mock draft, the Montreal Canadiens traded down with the Calgary Flames.
Okay.
And to take the 9th spot, and Calgary gives the Canadiens the 9th pick and their later first round pick. So that would be 3 first round picks for the Canadiens, the Winnipeg Jets, their own, and the Calgary pick. So they have the Flames taking a defenseman, Zev Buim, Saleyev to Utah, Ottawa gets Zane Parekh, Seattle gets Sam Dickinson, and the Canadiens, looking for a forward, would take Tej Aginla at the number 9 position from the Kelowna Rockets. We reported over the last few weeks that the Canadiens have monitored this player extensively, meeting with him at least 4 times that we know of during the year. So an interesting little mock.
Absolutely. And I think it's really gonna continue to evolve. There's gonna be the favorites. I mean, I think Caden Lindstrom's gonna be in the conversation plenty at around that number 5 spot. So is Tej Aginla. But as I think, not every organization is great at keeping a lid on what their plans are. So we'll see how all of that changes as we get closer, for sure. Also wanted to, shifting away from that, just want to remind everyone that as Rick said, Owen Beck and the Memorial Cup playoffs, all of that is still happening. And so if you want to keep up with the latest going on with the QMJHL, in terms of their aspect of the CHL and the Memorial Cup run, Don't forget, you can find all of our content about Canadiens prospects at thn.com/Montreal, but you'll also get our English language coverage of the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League over at thn.com/QMJHL. So 2 places for you to get some great information about prospects, and particularly those playing in the CHL. So as we mentioned, the San Jose Sharks winning the draft lottery, falling exactly like there were no surprises.
No moving up, no moving down. It was the default.
That's right.
Yeah, draft lottery.
Absolutely. And so San Jose wins it, likely to get Macklin Celebrini. The Canadiens, as we know, are going to pick 5th overall for the second consecutive year. And so Kent Hughes made his standard media availability as soon as the draft lottery was over. And in terms of selecting 5th again, he did not seem to be too surprised by that.
The reality is the percentages of the lottery are such that the most likely outcome, I think, is that we pick 6. So in that regard, we've had good luck with the lottery. We've when we finished last and were due to pick first, we did, and the other 2 we picked where we were set based on the end of the season standings.
So picked where they're supposed to is basically what he said. And if there's going to be any movement, it's going to have to come either moving up or down by the magic of Kent Hughes. Of course, we saw that in the NFL draft, Vikings moving up twice. Thank you very much. But that does not happen very often in the NHL. In fact, there were no trades that I can remember in the first round of last year's draft. But as far as the lottery goes, it all came out as it was supposed to, according to the weighting of the different picks. The Canadiens picking 5th, and Kent Hughes didn't seem disappointed by that at all.
Now, I think the thing that everyone is starting to clamor about, whether it's fans, media, whoever it is getting Kent Hughes and the Canadiens to commit to, you're not drafting another defenseman again, right?
Well, let's hear from Ken.
I think what I've said is all things equal, we would draft a forward, and I think that remains the case. As far as having the opportunity to sit down with our scouts, which we're going to do next week, will really kind of solidify, exactly where they see the group of players that are available. So difficult for me to answer that question in advance of sitting down with the group in terms of telling you, hey, it's absolutely a forward versus a D. But, I would stand firm with all things equal. That's what we would do.
So it's difficult because the other part of this is that Kent Hughes certainly doesn't want to forecast what the Canadiens are going to do to the other 31 teams.
No.
In fact, he was asked, who's separated themselves as far as the four, and of course, silly question. He's not going to answer that. He's not going to give away any information. You might expect, and the other teams would know that the Canadiens are likely to pick a forward, given that in terms of their prospect pool, it's heavily weighted by defensemen, particularly left-handed defensemen. So would they then trade? Would they pick and trade? Everything's possible, but he said something that I think everybody could guess prior to the press conference, that all things equal, they'll likely pick a forward.
Which I hope to high hopes that they do. They need a forward. Come on, you need a forward.
Yeah.
All right. Looking around the NHL outside of the Canadiens, more finalists for this year's NHL awards have been trickling out from the league. They've announced the nominees for the Selke, the Hart, and the Ted Lindsay this week.
They have. And as we talked about last week, when we talked about the first set of awards that they had released, prior to all of this, I had to submit a ballot as part of the hockey news. And so I will give you the answers that I submitted. And with respect to the Selke Trophy, of course, the best defensive forward, my vote was for Alexander Barkov, the Florida Panthers. I think that was quite a legitimate pick. Jordan Staal was also in there, and I could see some argument for him. What I don't understand, I think that Austin Matthews is just been from the media in Toronto has just been his name put forward by on every single award.
It's insane.
I don't understand. Best defensive forward, you typically don't see a player who got 69 goals in that category.
No.
Austin Matthews nominated somehow for the Selke here.
Yeah, I think it's overkill. I know there's this obsession with Austin Matthews, and this isn't even, you like the Habs and so you're bashing the Leafs. It's not. I cover the Habs. I'm not, it's not a Leafs thing. I would say the same thing if they were this obsessed with Austin Matthews and he played for Arizona. It's just overkill, and it's almost, as you say, it's almost like he's getting nominated for stuff that you want to really ask. Okay, well, explain to me how he actually qualifies for that. So I'd like to see a little more parity, I guess. We'll see how all of those. It
was the Lady Byng last week that he was nominated for, and Selke this week. So
I don't
anyway.
know. We'll see who wins them. To be nominated is one thing. If he's up there holding 5 trophies at the end of the night, I'm going to have a different complaint. But I digress. The coaching carousel continues as Ottawa has finally announced their new head coach. They're hiring Travis Green to be their new bench boss.
Yeah, Michael Spinella was not thrilled with this pick. Of course,
No,
Michael
wasn't.
Spinella grew up as a Senators fan. I think this isn't the sexy pick. I don't think that Senators fans are too thrilled about it. It might be I saw Thomas Drance with an article saying this might be the smart pick. We'll see. We'll see if what Travis Green is able to do there.
And there is, of course, you fill a coaching position and another one becomes vacant because after getting ousted in the first round yet again, the Toronto Maple Leafs probably staring down the barrel at some pretty big changes in the next couple of months, but they did not waste any time in saying goodbye to head coach Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, this, of course, dwarfed the rest of the news of the week. It was all about the changes that the Leafs were going to make. And, of course, Pelly coming in, his first press conference on Friday as the CEO, along with Treliving and Shanahan. There was some rumors started that Shanahan was on his way out, but Pelly put an end to that quite quickly. Sheldon Keefe just couldn't get it done. And he put, I thought, a pretty classy video saying, and he thanked everybody. Interestingly enough, he didn't mention Pelly. He thanked everybody else in the organization. Apparently, there was some debate back and forth between Pelly and Shanahan about keeping Keefe. But now he becomes part of that coaching carousel. Will Kyle Dubas oust Mike Sullivan, as we talked about last week, and bring in his buddy Sheldon Keefe? Will he end up in Seattle? Will he end up in New Jersey, which is a often rumored stop for Keefe? The fascinating thing for me is that Marty St. Louis, didn't seem that long ago that the Canadiens hired him, is now the 5th longest tenured coach in the National Hockey League.
That's just not, I just recorded an episode of Rocket Hockey Report yesterday with Patrick Williams, and we were chatting off camera, and I said to him, Rick pointed out to me this week that the statistic that Marty St. Louis is the 5th longest tenured coach in the NHL, and we both just kind of looked into our respective cameras and just went, is that really, really, can that be? Didn't he just get hired? It just seems bizarre. Mm-hmm. Marty's supposed to be the new kid on the block. He is the new kid on the block. It's been nuts. Speaking of new kids on the block, all of you Gen Xers, Pun completely intended. Utah, the brand new Utah HC, working on their branding, and they've released their 20 finalists for what is going to be their team name. And now it goes to a fan vote. Now that they've whittled it down to 20 potential names for the franchise, the fans get to vote, and they get to pick 4 when they vote.
That's right. This is done. Ryan Smith, the owner of the team, he's also the owner of Qualtrics, the survey company. He knows what he's doing here, and he said they've built in all the protections as far as people flooding the fan vote. And out of these 20, apparently there was they did some kind of informal survey and came up with I don't know, more than 20, but whittled it down to the 20 that you have a choice to vote for. There's some crazy options here. Frost, Blizzard, Ice, Venom, Hive. For those who don't like change, they're just going to keep Utah HC. That is actually a possibility. The Canyons, Powder, Mountaineers, Swarm, Yeti, Outlaws, Blast, Squall, Mammoth, Black Diamonds, Caribou, Fury, Freeze, and Glaciers are the choices that you have here.
I sense a theme.
Yeah. Blizzard versus the Avalanche, anyone? So I voted, and of course I have to follow my own rule that I set a long time ago, that any team name that doesn't end in an S is stupid. And the Jazz, the Wild, they're dumb names.
Really? So
the one, my top choice here is the Utah Outlaws. I think that's cool. I think there's a lot that you can do with that. I don't think of a different outlaw team when maybe there is, but I think that's for Utah. That would be great. Black Diamonds is interesting as well. I have that as the third choice. And because they have an S attached to their names, that kind of left me. There's a lot of non-S's in there.
There are.
Yeti, I know that's kind of a favorite, kind of like the Kraken and
you
Yeti. You
could make the mascot a Yeti without calling the team the Yeti.
Yes, exactly.
Like make them the Utah Blizzard and have their mascot be a Yeti.
So my 4 were the Outlaws, the Diamonds, which the Outlaws I really like. Diamonds, a distant second choice, but I had to add Mountaineers and Glaciers in there. I'm not really great on those, but they end in an S. So that's what I have on my list, and that's who I voted for.
I'm going to agree with you on 2 of your 4. Can't agree with you on the Mountaineers because in college football realm, the Mountaineers are West Virginia. That's just can't. So I can't go Mountaineers. Outlaws, I agree. The Utah Outlaws would probably be my top pick as well. I agree. You could do a lot with that, and I think that would be fun. The other one I agree with you on is the Black Diamonds. It just nice nod to the skiing and the mountain ranges in the area. And of course, the Black Diamonds. That's the toughest. That's the toughest that you can take on, right? So it's got great connotation to it. Going away from the needing an S on the end of it, I did like the Utah Mammoth is better than Yeti. Again, I would say, make your mascot the Yeti if you want, or make your mascot the Mammoth. But okay, if I had to pick one, I'd say the Utah Mammoth. And in terms of all of the Powder and the Blizzard and the blah, 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 I went with Utah Frost.
Okay.
I don't love it, but I had to pick 4. So this is because if they said pick 1, I'd have said the Outlaws. If they said pick 2, I'd have said the Outlaws and the Black Diamonds. So
now Ryan Smith says that the name will be finalized by the end of the summer. They'll have a name, and then they'll begin making the jerseys and the everything that goes along with a logo. So for this season, what you'll see is Utah HC, and that's how they'll operate for this upcoming season. And then the full uniforms, jerseys and whatnot will happen, and color schemes and mascots a year into it.
All right.
Yeah.
Should be interesting. I think they could do a good job. I mean, they obviously have a good marketing team. So I have actual confidence that this is going to be fun to watch unroll over the summer. All right, we're going to take our first break here on the Canadiens Connection podcast. Coming up, we are going to have our question of the week for you, which you're going to be able to respond to. But what we're really excited about next is our big topic segment, which is coming up after this commercial break, where we invite Logan Mailloux's father, Jeff Mailloux, into the studio here with me and Rick, and we are going to talk about what an outstanding rookie season Logan Mailloux had, and what he's got his eyes set on this summer and this fall. So you're not going to want to miss a second of that. Stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Rocket Sports Media is currently recruiting talented, motivated, and committed people to join our team. If you're a student wishing to gain experience, a young professional interested in broadening your credentials, an experienced hockey mind looking for a platform to share your expertise, or a passionate fan looking to contribute to our publications by connecting with fellow hockey fans, we want to hear from you. If you are bright, loyal, passionate, and willing to dedicate yourself to a remarkable team, visit HabsHockeyReport.com and click the Join Our Team tab today. In every city around the world, sports fans flock to popular watering holes to share a few pints, some good grub, and to cheer for their team. Think your favorite sports bar deserves to be recognized? Or are you traveling to a new place and need to find the perfect spot to watch a game? HockeyPub.com is the answer. Find out where the best spots are in your city to eat, drink, and meet fellow fans. HockeyPub.com. Want the latest Habs news with game previews, reviews, and highlights? How about full coverage of development camps and special events? Looking to follow the Laval Rocket more closely this season? Or perhaps you'd like to learn more about team prospects? The Rocket Sports Media team has what you're looking for at thn.com/Montreal, the place where you'll find everything you need to be the most informed and connected Habs fan around. That's thn.com/Montreal.
And welcome back to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. I am Amy Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at FlyersRule. Of course, with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, the site editor for thn.com/Montreal. That's thehockeynews.com/Montreal. His name's Rick Stevens, and of course, you can also follow him on Twitter. You can do that at Rocket Sports. And hey, if you're enjoying this podcast and you want to follow the podcast on social media, then just follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Bookmark our website at canadiensconnection.fm. That way, if you ever miss an episode, you can just go back in the archive and listen to it. And most importantly, whether you're listening on a podcast player or if you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe because we don't ever want you to miss an episode of the show. Now, as I mentioned, you know, my main task here at Rocket Sports is our Laval Rocket coverage. And so got to watch, of course, as I do every year, all 72 games that the Rocket played this year. And part of that was watching Logan Mailloux play all 72 games of his rookie season. And boy, just had an excellent first campaign in the pro leagues with the Laval Rocket, and managed to also make his NHL debut with the Montreal Canadiens this season before the season wrapped up as well. And Rick and I are very excited that his dad, Jeff, is here, about to join us in the studio. And he's going to reflect a little bit on Logan's season and his aspirations for his NHL career. Well, Rick, I am so pleased to get to welcome our guest this week, a very special guest. Love it when we have hockey family interviews because, family is really at the heart of the sport. And so pleased to welcome to the show today, Jeff Mailloux, father of Montreal Canadiens and Laval Rocket defenseman Logan Mailloux. Jeff, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Logan Mailloux in his rookie season this year had quite a tremendous performance, really made such a big impression on, I think, his coaches, on the fans, both in Laval and Montreal. Just want to give like a little snapshot here of Logan Mailloux's rookie season. The only player on the Laval roster to play in all 72 games. He's the only one who did it. Scoring 14 goals, which was a franchise record for a defenseman, 33 assists for 47 points. Also was the selection for the team for the All-Star game, and he made the AHL All-Rookie team for this season. Just absolutely knocked his rookie season out of the park, and it was very exciting to watch his progression throughout the season, Rick.
And it was a season that tremendous in Laval, but he had an opportunity at the end of the season to make his NHL debut with the Montreal Canadiens. But before we get to that, I guess I have to ask, what was it like? You had watched him and been there with him through his amateur, his junior career, but the opening night lineup, the first game, his first professional game for the Laval Rocket. Your son had become a professional hockey player. Can you just talk to us what that felt like for you and the family?
It was exciting. It was a surreal moment. We were all very excited for him, obviously, from the minute he got drafted in 21 to up to this point now, finishing with junior and moving on to the professional ranks. We were excited, nervous, like all parents are, I believe, when your kids start something like that. But yeah, we were all gathered around the TV watching, and we thought he was handled himself very well. He's always managed to rise to the occasion, and that seems to be what he did.
As I mentioned a moment ago, one of the accolades that he received this season was that he was the Laval selection to represent at the AHL All-Star game. And it looked like, from watching, it looked like that he had an enjoyable time. He took part in a number of skills competition events like the rapid fire, pass and score, the breakaway relay. It's a special thing for any player to be selected to the All-Star team, but I think there's an added layer of it when you're a rookie as well. Can you just describe what we heard even some comments in the media from Logan prior to going, saying that he wasn't perhaps expecting it, but that it was a big honor and that he wanted to, as he said, wear the Laval crest well out there. What did it mean to Logan and all of you as a family to get that recognition in his first season?
Oh, we were super excited when he told his mother and I. It was just, we didn't expect it either. And when he told us about that, we were like super excited. He's a kid that's worked so hard for everything he's gotten, and it was nice for him to get some validation and to be selected for that. Especially as a rookie, he didn't expect it, but he was super pumped when he got the word that he'd be going out there.
And I remember the video. His teammates were pretty excited when JF Wool announced at practice. They kind of mobbed him. That was a lot of fun. But if that wasn't enough, then at the end of the season, and I think Marty St. Louis had forecasted early on, because Logan had a great training camp and was one of the last cuts by the Canadiens and sent to Laval. And I think Marty had said Logan's going to play a game this season for the Canadiens, and he did. He made his NHL debut. He made his NHL debut against the Detroit Red Wings, a team maybe you're familiar with, and did it at the Bell Center. You talked about rising to the occasion. He even got his first career NHL point in that game. If you can, talk us through when you heard about the news that he'd be making his NHL debut, traveling to Montreal, how that all kind of unfolded, and then the moment being there in the stands when he did his infamous rookie lap.
Yeah, it was super exciting. He FaceTimed his mother and I the day and a half before, and he literally was just like a regular Sunday afternoon, and he's talked for about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden he told us. And so we thought he was joking, but no, eventually it was real. He said, "No, Kent Hughes called me, and I'm going to be playing on Tuesday." So so that was cool. So then the team was great with us. They set up, got us there and a hotel and that, and we were there in time for the game. My wife Vanessa and I, and my daughter Cassidy, and then and Logan's grandparents, and we all made it to Montreal in time. And then and then we were getting in there as soon as we can. I didn't want to miss a second of that rookie lap. So so we were in the stands ready to go, and when he came out, it was tears in the eyes. It was just the culmination of a 20-year journey. So so it was exciting and surreal all at the same moment. The Habs treated us very well as a family. They took care of us, and Logan was we thought he had a great first game. He you're always nervous that he won't fit in or he can't keep up or anything else because playing the year in Laval, he adapted really well, but this is the next step, the ultimate goal. Mm-hmm. And we thought he handled himself fairly well. I talked to other people, because you're thinking, you're just your parents' perspective. You're always going to think your kid's doing well, but other people were telling us kind of the same thing, that he fit in just fine for his game. And
he didn't look out of place at all.
Not at all.
Yeah, we were excited and we were happy about that. Yeah. And, he was playing the Red Wings, which was my team growing up.
Oh, boy.
Across the river from Detroit. So I had a lot of my friends texting me and saying, hoping that Logan had a great game, but then the Habs would lose by 1. That's what they wanted. And that's what happened eventually.
Well, during that game, in the first intermission, RDS broadcasting the game, of course, and it was Marc Denis that had that interviewed Logan, and this is what that sounded like.
Logan, première période, première passe, un premier point déjà. Comment tu t'es senti sur la glace du Centre Bell?
Ouais, non, c'est incroyable ici. Jouer avant les partisans ici, c'est spécial, c'est sûr.
Talk about him fitting in. He fit in really well, and like we've heard him do interviews in French in Laval all season. But for some of the Canadiens fans, this was a surprise, a pleasant surprise. But his French, his accent, he seemed comfortable, and we've heard his name chanted in Laval, but I think that Canadiens fans really started to adore him in that moment. So talk about growing up and his exposure to the French language and how he's embraced it since he's been in Laval.
Yeah, it was. He grew up, and him and his sister went to a all French school, and even an all French daycare from when he was 16 months old. So he was speaking French at a very young age, and continued that in school right up until high school, until he started to move away for hockey reasons. But and he's always kind of kept it. And then when Montreal drafted him, we thought, oh my goodness, of all places, you can use your French.
Yeah.
So, and he did, and going there in the summer to train. And then, and then I think this year in Laval, especially hanging around with a lot of the guys on the team are French speaking. So, he seems to even picked up a Quebecois, accent a bit. So, it's good for him. And he says he feels more comfortable now as he spends more time in Quebec. So, so it's all worked out. Of all the teams to draft him, it would be the team that he could use his French.
You mentioned being across the river from Detroit in Belle River. That's where his hockey journey began. At a young age, I expect, 2, 3, 4 years old, and played minor hockey, and then left home at an early age to go to Toronto, and he was coached by Paul Coffey in there. Quite a an upbringing. Can you talk about those early days and taking him to the rink and being a hockey parent through all of that?
Sure. Logan, if you didn't know him, he was always a super competitive kid. He played every sport you could think of growing up. But he was on skates at 2.5. His sister was a figure skater at the time, and he wanted to skate. And so he started learning how to skate with the local figure skating club when he was 2.5. And then eventually that led to minor hockey in Bell River when he was 4.
Wow.
And then he moved his way up, played AAA and that around in this area up until, when he was 15, we made the decision. He made the decision he wanted to play in Toronto because that was going to be the most heavily scouted area for the OHL. And that's where he had wanted to play. And we ended up with the Marlies, which was coached by Paul Coffey. And some of his teammates were like Wyatt Johnson from the Dallas Stars.
Nice.
And Ethan Del Mastro was his defensive partner, who's in the Chicago Blackhawks system.
Yeah.
So, they had a successful team playing against guys like Brant Clark and Shane Wright. Actually, he went to school with those two guys at the school he went to in Toronto that year. So
nice.
He was exposed to a lot of kids that were playing at a high level like him also. So that was, 15, moving to Toronto. His mother eventually moved with him there. They lived with her cousin, but it was exciting. And then after that, it was the OHL draft. London takes him, and he ended up living in London for a few years. So but this was always him. He always had the drive. He always wanted to play with the best kids that he could. And he always wanted to be on some of the best teams if it was possible. So he was the one that wanted to move to Toronto when he was 15. And it just, things seemed to fall in place from there. And then London and the Hunters running that organization. He went to Junior B the first year. He was a bit disappointed at that, but he ended up breaking records and being Rookie of the Year in that Junior B league that year before COVID shut them down. So,
with the London Nationals, 68 points in 48 games. All the while, he was practicing with the London Knights, but setting records with the Nationals. Incredible season, and I think one of the things that we've talked about, his rising to the occasion and all of that, but I think. He was a bit of a fan favorite. He's become a fan favorite. They chant his name in Laval. But I think of in London that he got a hat trick February 2023, the Knights against the Erie Otters, and he gets a hat trick, but he the third goal, he finishes it with a Michigan. Like that. That's
a little flair.
Yeah, a little bit of a flair for the dramatic there.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially as a defenseman.
Right. Well, that's what I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So we were watching that game. My daughter actually had gone there with my brother who lives in Cleveland. They had driven to that game. My daughter was at school in West Virginia, so they drove up for that game. My wife and I didn't make it. We were watching it on TV, but that was pretty surreal when he did that. I yelled at my wife, I think he just pulled the Michigan. He had some good games that season. That was, but that game was definitely one to remember.
You've mentioned Logan's sister a couple of times, Cassidy. Logan's not the only athlete in the family. I think we should just tip the cap to Cassidy as well.
Yeah, she's about just under 3 years older than him, and she went down to West Virginia and played on a lacrosse scholarship for 5 years, including the COVID year. But
wow.
And she played hockey growing up. Both kids were always athletes, always into everything. So our house was busy.
Putting it mildly. Well, as Rick said, he's even in his junior career, it seems Logan has an ability to really grow a fan base and get fans excited about watching him play on whatever team he's on. And so just for some fun here towards the end of our interview, we've actually got some really fun questions from Habs fans that want to ask some questions about Logan's personality. So we'll just take you through a few of those. I'm going to start with Martine from Sherbrooke, Quebec. And she wants to know, when did you or he start believing that maybe Logan had a chance to really go for it and try to make it and play in the NHL?
Well, Logan thought so at probably 4, but even in like when he started late elementary school years and early high school years, some of his teachers would say, you have to have a plan B and everything else. This hockey thing doesn't work out. And, I'd say 13, 14, he was like, no, it's going to work out. And I'm going to be playing in the NHL one day. So he was bound and determined from his early teen years that he was going to make it. And, and we always said, I remember distinctly there was a dad that playing minor hockey with, and he said, well, none of these kids are going to make it anyways. And my wife turned around and said, well, somebody's got to make it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I would pinpoint, maybe 13, 14, we started to think, you know what, he's probably got a good shot at this.
Well, this next question maybe is about the plan B. This comes from Grace in Strathroy in the London area, Strathroy, Ontario. Grace asks, what was Logan's best subject in school? And if he wasn't a hockey player, what would he have been?
The thing he's always been interested in school was history.
Oh.
And you'll catch him sitting in front of the TV sometimes, watching old war movies or stuff like that. He's really interested in history. As far as what he would do otherwise, if he didn't make it as a hockey player, I think he would probably want to become a hockey agent. He likes that business side of it.
All right.
That's very interesting. And still something that a long time from now, after his hockey career, that's still something he could pursue.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Wow. All right. Well, we've got, this is kind of a double question from two different people. We have Trevor from Moncton who asks, I'll let you answer this first half first, and then we'll go to the second half. So Trevor from Moncton says, who was Logan's favorite player growing up?
It would probably be a combination of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. He was a big Pittsburgh Penguins fan growing up, and he had pictures of both those guys on his wall.
Nice. Well, Robert from Hearst, Ontario, then says, is there an NHL player currently that Logan wants to play like? Is there someone that he tries to emulate?
He's mentioned a few guys over the years, but I know the one that's always seems to come back to is Brent Burns.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard him say that.
Yeah, he's a righty like him, and got a good shot from the point. So he's a big, thick guy, plays heavy like Logan does. So that would probably be the guy he aspired to be like.
That's a good answer.
This one from Greg in St. Vital, suburb of Winnipeg, St. Vital, Manitoba. Greg asks, how often do you talk to Logan during the season? Do you talk to him every game? And do you give him hockey advice?
We probably talk to him almost every day, maybe average 5 times a week. And hockey advice, not anymore. I leave that to the professionals. I will joke with him once in a while, but he brings up the little mistakes in his game more than I do in that. And he'll ask, did you see this? Or what did you see, kind of thing. So he does bring that stuff up once in a while, but I stopped coaching him when he was 12. So,
wow.
All right.
So I said, you know what, I'll let the guys who, are doing this and now that are being paid to do this, let them decide how to play the game. And quite frankly, right now, Logan knows way more about the game than I ever do.
Then we have Patrick. Finally, here we have Patrick from Laval with a 2-part question as well. First, wants to know which teammate in either Laval or Montreal is Logan closest to, and naturally, he also wants to know if he liked playing alongside Arbor Jackeye for Jackey's AHL stint during the season.
So the first part, I'd have to say there's three guys that he hangs around with. There's kind of the four amigos there. It's Jakub Dobish, Trudeau, and Waugh. Those the four of them seem to spend a lot of time together.
Nice.
So
that's a
quite a group,
crew.
yeah.
yeah, exactly. If you've met them, which I'm sure you guys have, they're funny guys. We've met them a couple times. So they seem to be really good kids. So
Dobish is a character.
Yeah. And then, sorry, what was the second part? Oh, playing with Arbor.
Playing with Arbor, yeah.
He loves playing with Arbor. Arbor's another guy he got to know at his first training camp. And he's an Ontario boy, so he's even gotten to know Arbor's brother, too.
Oh,
and
great.
Florian, yeah.
So when Florian came up to Laval at the end of the season, it was Logan kind of was comfortable hanging out with him and, and kind of showing him the ropes a little bit at the start. So, but Logan said when he played with Arbor, that was the most comfortable partner he's ever played with.
Wow.
They just kind of read off each other. He said, I didn't have to think so much. He said, it just came natural playing with Arbor. So,
well, and they look great playing together. So,
yeah, hopefully
maybe
next year.
Yeah, hopefully they can continue that.
Yeah,
we'll try to put in a good word there. All right, well, now that his rookie season is done, now it's time to look forward to sophomore season. What's Logan's training plan basically for the summer, and what are the goals that he's setting for himself for next season?
Well, he's come back home here to Bell River to train for the summer. He's had a personal trainer that he's been training with for a few years now. That he works for his off ice stuff. He's in the gym every morning usually, and then they'll do something different in the afternoon, like play tennis or go run at the beach or something not hockey, but just still to kind of cross train, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll skate 2 or 3 times a week, off and on with local pros and OHL kids that live down in this area. And then he likes to play golf, so he'll golf 2 or 3 times a week too.
Nice.
So it's kind of keep himself fit but moving around. And yeah, he said right away as soon as the season was done and after playing that game in Montreal, his goal is to make the Habs in September. And if not, he'd be, I don't know, disappointed, but he really thinks he has a legitimate chance this year. We'll see with this summer what happens with trades and drafts and everything else, but he's planning on trying to make that team. He came close last summer.
He sure did.
And now
Yeah,
he
did.
thinks he grew a lot in the pro game, and I have to agree with that. You don't realize it until didn't know a lot about the American League other than just watching it and guys coming up through it. But now I've been watching it close as a parent and pretty much watched all 72 games this year.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big step. And then the next one's even bigger.
Yeah.
But I think he understands that well, and I think he's ready to take that next step. So he hopes he has a legitimate shot.
Well, we certainly were quite impressed with the performance that Logan had all season long. He really, as you say, he stepped up. He met the challenge and then some. So congratulations to both him and all of you as a family on a successful rookie season. And we wish all of you the best of luck going into training camp next year as well. We certainly will be watching closely and rooting Logan on as well. And we would love to have you back on the show sometime to talk about his next set of accomplishments.
That would be great.
Well, that was a terrific interview by Jeff Mailloux. We thank him and was able to give us his perspective on how the season unfolded, what led up to it, right from the from the age 3 when he played his first competitive game, and mention how competitive he is right up to the solo lap, rookie lap that we saw at the Bell Center in the Canadiens' final game. And then looking ahead, what he's going to do in the summer and that training camp. That's going to be a bit of a battle, but Logan expects to be in the mix. So thank you again to Jeff. And congratulations, not only to Logan, but the family, Jeff.
That's right.
Vanessa, Cassidy, the grandparents. We're really looking forward to the fall. Paul Byron had said that in his eyes, Logan Mailloux is the most ready, most NHL ready prospect in the Canadian system. So we'll see how that plays out.
We will see how it plays out. Thanks again, Jeff, for taking some time to be with us today. And in fact, our Canadians Connection question of the week is Logan Mailloux related, and it is that question exactly we want to know from all of you. Do you think will Logan Mailloux make the opening night roster for the Montreal Canadiens in October? It is going to be a competitive training camp, particularly on the defensive side of things. But do you believe Mailloux can make the opening night cut for the Montreal Canadiens this October? Be sure that you leave us a message either down in the comments section, text us at 5853-ROCKET, or drop us a comment on social media. We would love to hear from you. And with that, we're going to take our final break here on this week's episode of the Canadiens Connection podcast. But stay with us. We've got lots to talk to you about in the third segment, get you caught up on some things you might have missed. And we've got some great listener and viewer comments that we want to share with you as well. So stay with us. You're listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
And welcome back to episode 295 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. Don't forget, once again, you can follow us, the podcast itself, on social media at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Don't forget to bookmark our website at canadiensconnection.fm in case you ever miss an episode and want to go back and catch up. And of course, we always love to hear from you, whether it's an answer to the question of the week, if you've got feedback, a suggestion, or just a comment or a question even, text us anytime via the Rocket Sports text line at 5853-ROCKET.
Mentioning the questions, I loved the questions that our listeners sent in for Jeff Mailloux, and he seemed to enjoy answering those questions. That was great. So thank you for that.
That's right. Now, being as I even said this to Jeff when we were done recording, being as I grew up and still live in Eastern Pennsylvania, the fact that Logan grew up as a Pittsburgh fan,
Crosby
we're
and
going to have words.
Both forwards.
Yes, we're going to have an issue here, but we'll let it slide for now. All right. So what might you have missed from the Rocket Sports team this week? Well, again, we don't want you to forget that we actually cover the Montreal Canadiens and their prospect for the hockey news on their Montreal team site. So you can find all of our written content regarding the Canadiens organization at thn.com/Montreal. That's all of your Canadiens coverage in one single place. You also, of course, would be very remiss to not be subscribed to our YouTube channel. You can find it at All Habs on YouTube. That's just youtube.com/allhabs. Or just go into YouTube and search at All Habs. You'll find us. Be sure you hit subscribe. We've got videos that come out all of the time, whether they're pre-recorded videos, they're video versions of this podcast, which some of you might be watching right now, listening to this podcast. We've got live streams that happen occasionally. And so you don't want to miss any of that. In fact, this past week, we had on Monday, last week's version of the Canadiens Connection podcast came out, entitled on YouTube, Can the Canadiens Make Short-Term and Long-Term Gains This Summer? Which was a very, very fun episode. We also had a new Rocket hockey report come out this week. As I mentioned, our very own Patrick Williams joined me on that show this week. It was a great conversation. That video is called 3 AHL Coaching Standouts Poised for NHL Roles. And that is a big chunk of what we talked about with all of these coaching vacancies popping up in the NHL. There is a chance that organizations might want some fresh new talent coming out of the AHL. And so Patrick helped identify 3 of the top guys in the AHL who could look to be moved up. But we also talked about where the Calder Cup playoffs stand at the moment, particularly the North Division. And we talked a bit about the fact that we still don't have an answer on whether or not JF Uhl is going to be extended by the Canadiens organization as the Laval Rocket's head coach. So lots for you to catch up in there as well.
The American Hockey League, of course, is a proving ground, is a training ground, is a development ground for players, but also for officials and, of course, for those in the coaching ranks, and we could see some movement there, and we could see some movement in the AHL itself with that question. I think the longer it goes on, the less likely that we'll see JF Uhl renewed. Speculating on that.
Yeah, it's been at least 3 weeks now already. So we'll see how long that's going to drag out. I did mention that we also do live streams, which are kind of global watch parties for special events during the season. Michael and Nathan host those for selected Canadiens games to watch along with fans around the world and interact and react to everything together. But we're doing them in the off season as well. And Rick, Michael, and Nathan actually had one this week, a live watch party. Watch along on YouTube for the NHL Draft Lottery, which was pretty fun.
It was great, and we saw that there were many, not only Canadiens fans, but fans of other teams who were looking for a place to watch the draft lottery along with other people, so that they could comment, and that was a lot of fun. And the only way that you'll know of these events that as we live stream them is to be subscribed. So make sure you're subscribed. The other you put out questions on the community tab,
polls.
Polls and that sort of thing. So you want to be subscribed to our YouTube channel, please.
Absolutely. And of course, if you're in the mood for subscribing and you haven't subscribed to this podcast already, please be sure to do so. Whatever your favorite podcast app is that you use, you can find us there. So be sure you subscribe. We would really appreciate it. It very much helps us to be seen by even more Habs fans. If you can either leave us a review or a 5-star review, a comment, whatever. And be sure, as I've mentioned, to bookmark our website at canadiensconnection.fm. Don't forget, we're your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And so we want to be sure that you never miss any of the content that we put out on any of our platforms. Also, don't forget, it's the off season for the Canadiens. We don't really have an off season here at Rocket Sports, but one of the things that we do like to do during hockey's off season is add to our team. And Rick, now is the perfect time over the summer for anyone who's interested in having some fun and doing some work alongside us for the upcoming season. Now would be the time to reach out to us.
Now, we know that many people that listen to us are in college, university. They, now have some time on their hands in the summer, and they might like to be getting some experience. And what a better way if you're in a communication program or a journalism program, and you want to learn the ins and outs about sports writing and hone your craft and get some experience, to join our team, and we'll be glad to give you a training program and turn you loose on some quick hit stories that come out daily on our site.
Yeah.
Get that experience, and that puts you a whole lot further ahead when you're competing for a job. So if you're interested in an internship, reach out to us. I mentioned the email address before. It is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com, hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
And of course, while you're at it, if you do want to answer our Canadiens Connection question of the week, we would love to hear your responses and your thoughts to the question of, will Logan Mailloux make the opening night roster for the Montreal Canadiens come this October? I think he's got a good shot personally, but we all want to know what you have to say about that and what you think, where you think he's going to start the season. Plenty of you wrote in regarding last week's show. That was Canadiens Connection Podcast, episode 294. And as I mentioned a moment ago, it was where Rick and Michael had talked about, the opportunities that the Canadiens have this summer where they could make some short-term gains, perhaps in free agency or via trade, to help get them closer to being maybe a playoff-style team for next season, but also at the same time making some long-term gains as well, making sure that whatever they do also takes them another step forward in the rebuild. And that would likely be through the draft, not taking on, if they are taking on a veteran, free agency, or particularly if it's a trade, not taking on a cumbersome contract, that type of thing. And so the question for last week came through, and we had a couple of great answers. She26, we can always rely on She26 for some really thoughtful comments. She says, so happy for Gooley. Woot woot. Good for Fowler, showing that he knows what he needs to do and he's going to do it. And then I know that one of the things that was tossed around while Rick and Michael were talking was, if the Canadiens start trading, who would be the trade chips? And Logan Mailloux's name was a question mark. And she says, nope. Logan Mailloux needs to stay. They better not even think of trading him.
Yeah, that wasn't our suggestion. That was what was out there. If a trade was constructed for Trevor Zegras and of course Anaheim again, Pat Verbeek looking for a right-handed defenseman. He also likes players who are physical, and so that seemed to fit the bill for some people who were floating his name around. And
not any of us, though.
No,
none of us want to see him go. She goes on to say, I listen to your entire podcast when I can, and then I have to backtrack and listen again before I comment. It seems like every time I listen, I hear about more prospects that I've never heard of. There's just so dang many. I love to hear comments like that. That's great.
Yeah, well, especially if we can be the ones who provide the introduction on some of the prospects, we're happy to do that. I also like that she says that she listens to the entire podcast and then listens to it again. Much better than, a pet peeve of mine is when people see the title and then comment on the title without listening. No, much better to listen to what we're actually talking about.
No, I don't like that. I also don't like when people think that we change our opinions about what we report on based on how people comment to us in the sections. Yeah, we don't do that either. No. So she then finishes up by saying, my dream scenario would be to see a new GM and Patrick Waugh as coach. Very informative yet again. Thanks, guys. So thank you, She. Always a great comment. We appreciate your support.
Thanks for that, She26. This comment comes from JJ Evans, 1693. Simple, sweet and simple. He or she says, just get rid of Matheson.
Yes,
20 please. Less goals against. Done. Period.
Yes, please.
There you go.
If I could double like that comment, I definitely would. All right. So what's coming up this week? Well, the IIHF World Championship will continue. And as we said, we'll be keeping an eye on the Canadiens players and prospects who are participating in that tournament. And then next Saturday, May 18th, hey, guess what? I get to be back in the hosting chair again because Michael's not going to be back yet.
Nice.
While we will miss Michael, we hope he's having a good time, but it is kind of fun because I get to be here with all of you as well, so that'll be fun.
Look forward to that.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Canadiens Connection on your favorite podcast apps. Hit the notification bell as well if you're on YouTube. Wherever you're listening, hit that share button, share it with your friends and other Habs fans, and we just want to thank you once again for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast right here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.